In today's video, I'm going to be doing a buy-to-let Q&A. Thanks for visiting my channel, Free Your Finance. My name's Gary and I talk about investing, property and the journey towards financial independence. If this sounds like something you may be interested in watching a little more about, please hit the subscribe button below. So back in October, I shared my stock market Q&A and I asked for any questions that you may have about buy-to-let investing. I managed to get 11 questions across my YouTube and my Instagram that I'm going to go through today and answer with my honest opinion. Before I get into the questions, I must say I am not a financial advisor. This is just simply me giving my thoughts. So now let's get my laptop and start with the questions. So the first question is it better to hold buy-to-lets in a company structure? So this is a really great question and one that has been a hot topic for quite a while between investors. Short answer is it depends on your situation, to be honest with you. There are pros and cons of holding a property within a limited company. Some of the advantages, the big one being is it cuts out the Section 24, which is something that was introduced firstly back in 2016. Ultimately, this is going to lower tax bills potentially, especially if you're a higher rate taxpayer. Another big advantage of holding properties in a limited company is it's going to give you personal protection. What I mean by this is if you were having any troubles, they can't come after sort of you and your family and maybe your own mortgage and your own property. If your properties are held within a company, then they can only come after the company itself. Some of the disadvantages of holding a property in a limited company include obviously the running costs of the company, so it's going to be accounting fees and stuff. You've got to set up the company, of course, and then also often mortgages can firstly be slightly harder to get hold of and also more expensive. A big thing is the setup fees can be quite a lot more. If you're like me and you bought properties before any of the sort of Section 24 changes, back in the days when we used to buy properties personally, you can of course transfer your properties from personal to the limited company. However, please do be aware that you're then going to be introduced to things like stamp duty and capital gains tax too. So really the answer is you need to go and speak to a professional tax advisor, preferably one that deals with property tax. The conclusion from what I understand is everyone is going to be different. If you're going for just sort of one or two properties, then potentially you can hold them personally, especially if you're a lower rate taxpayer. If you're planning on getting sort of 4 or 5 or more properties and you are also a higher rate taxpayer, then I believe the correct answer would be that you're probably better off buying in a limited company. Okay, so next question is, do you think it's worth holding out to see if the market crashes? So I actually got asked this question a few times across my different platforms, but obviously I only put it in once. The answer is no one knows. We can't time the market, unfortunately. Personally, especially if we look in the stock markets, for example, I would have never thought that we'd be hitting sort of all-time highs in some of the indexes over the last sort of few months, especially with everything going on with this global pandemic. The fact is property prices are very high right now, especially when you're buying down south where I own my properties. Rental yields are not quite what they used to be. I know there are ways of increasing yields, a popular method being HMOs, but to answer your question from my point of view, I probably wouldn't buy another property right now, especially down in the south. If I really wanted to invest in a property right now, I'd probably be moving up north towards somewhere like Liverpool, where I know one of my recent guests, Justin Wilkins, invests in, as I believe the property prices to the rental yields up there are much better for us as the investor. Okay, so next question is, what do you look for in a tenant and why? So this is a really great question. When I meet tenants, the biggest thing I want to see is just someone that I can have a conversation with and friendly. I know it sounds crazy, but because I manage my properties myself, I want someone that's going to be a fair person and someone I can deal with as a human being. I look for someone that's just very reasonable. Obvious things like someone that turns up on time to the meetings, someone that has got good communication. It's all basic things that I find helps to be a good tenant. When you may have any problems in the flat, you want someone that's going to communicate well with you and also be fair and allow you to deal with the problem, of course. The other thing you may want to consider is their income. You can find affordability calculators that tell you an estimate of how much income they believe that they should be earning to be able to afford that rent. Of course, this is only a recommendation. This is not any law or anything like that. You can decide yourself. The next question was from one of my American viewers and they said, is the BRRR real estate strategy popular in the UK? To be honest with you, I didn't know what this strategy was, so I had to open the internet and find out that it stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, refinance and repeat. We do have many strategies very similar to this. I'd never heard it called BRRR. However, yes, this is definitely something we do. I personally have never bought a property cheap and then refurbished it to increase its value. However, I have purchased a property off plan before, which has increased in value by the time it completed. What I mean by buying a property off plan is it wasn't actually built yet. I bought 2 properties just by seeing the plan of the properties, which is obviously a slightly risky strategy, but the advantage is you can often get a really great deal because you may be waiting a year to 2 years for that property to be completed. The 2 properties I purchased using this method have actually both increased over £50,000 to £60,000 in just a couple of years, so it was a strategy that worked for me. So next question is, what do you do to avoid unsuitable applicants and how do you filter them? So it's a really fantastic question. To answer the latter point of your question first, I use OpenRent to find a tenant, which I speak about lots in my property videos. I will leave my referral link in the description of this video. Go and check them out, they're incredible. But OpenRent do actually allow you to set up filter questions. So when tenants first inquire for that property, it automatically asks them some of the questions that you do or don't want. So for example, I can set it to ask for their salary. I can set it to ask if they're a smoker or non-smoker, depending if the property allows smoking or not. What this does is it starts filtering out the inquiries before I have to deal with them as a human being and take up my time. The computer sort of does some of the legwork for me. Of course, they could lie to these questions, so we do go through referencing later down the line if we choose to go ahead with an applicant, and that will confirm things like salary. And then to answer the first point of your question, how do I avoid unsuitable applicants? It's a tough one, to be honest with you. It's mostly by meeting them and getting a feel for them. I know it sounds a bit basic, but luckily I believe I'm quite a good judge of character when I meet people. I just want someone that just seems fair, friendly, easy to talk to, and someone that I feel is going to be a respectful tenant. Of course, this could go wrong, but touch wood, so far all of my tenants have been fantastic people and they've never caused me any trouble at all. So next question was left on one of my last videos and it said, great video, do you think I should rent out my flat furnished or unfurnished? I really don't know if a 1-bedroom flat will interest a couple or a single person, and I don't know what type of furniture I should buy for my tenant, as I don't know the need of an individual tenant. We'll really appreciate if you have any suggestions. So thank you for your question. To answer from my opinion, all of my flats go out unfurnished. The reason I have chosen to always do this is it's worried me that firstly, obviously there's a cost to furnishing property. Secondly, you're relying on you making the correct choices of furniture to a tenant's taste. Thirdly, you've got to replace said pieces of furniture eventually when they wear. Of course, if a tenant damaged a piece of furniture, this could be charged from their deposit, but it's then proving that, and this can be a complicated process sometimes. So personally, I offer all of my flats unfurnished. Next question, I really enjoyed your refurb rental property videos. Will there be any more like these? There definitely will be. I really enjoyed making them, so I'm glad you enjoyed watching them too. The good news is, for me anyway, that right now I don't have any works to do on any flats, so at the moment there's no more videos up and coming, but of course as soon as any works need to be done, I'll definitely be documenting it and sharing it with you guys. Next question, is it easy to manage a rental property yourself? How many hours per month does it take? So great question. Personally, I believe it is easy. With platforms such as OpenRent, which I've already mentioned, they give a really great helping hand with making sure everything is done correctly and legally, which is obviously very important. I would also say there's a really great community online of landlords. You can join associations such as NALA, and you can also join Facebook groups. One I'm in is called UK Landlords, and it's been a very friendly and helpful group. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the Facebook group and get experienced landlords answering those questions. With regards to how many hours per month does it take, this varies month by month depending on if anything goes wrong really. If nothing goes wrong, then technically I spend about half an hour per month doing some bookkeeping. If things go wrong with a flat or I need to refurbish one like you saw in one of my past videos, then naturally this could be days of work. So it varies every single month, but when I'm not having to go into the properties, it's minimal. Next question was, how many buy-to-lets do I have? I have 5 buy-to-lets. They're all in the southeast. They're all less than 1 hour from central London. All include parking in good town centre locations close to train stations, which is something I always look for. Next question was, do you think it's worth the time and effort? Not a dig, just curious. Firstly, not a problem at all. I don't take it as a dig. Thank you for your question. I've actually made a video about this recently, which is one of my most popular videos on my channel, called Is Buy-to-Let Dead? I'll put a link to that video in the top corner of this one. Answering your question, personally, I think it is totally worth it. You can make a lot of money in property. It sounds stupid, but I also enjoy the fact that it has to be run as a business. I love running businesses and that gives me a lot of pleasure. I love the personal side of it. Another great thing about property is ultimately you're using someone else's money to pay your mortgage every month. You can also leverage quite quickly using property, which is a method I've done before. So for example, after you've owned a property for so long, that property price has increased, so you can borrow more money out of that property to then buy more properties. So there's so many great avenues with buy-to-let properties. The only thing I would add to this is it's definitely worth diversifying your portfolio. This is why I've recently started getting more into investing in the stock market. I found that all of my eggs, so to speak, were in property, so I wanted to just get a few of those eggs and pop them into the stock market too. And then the final question today, again left on one of my old videos, was, this is great, Gary, did you buy a house for yourself before doing all of this, or did you house hack? So I did neither actually. I actually lived at home with my parents, so I was a cool dude obviously. I lived at home till I was about 26, 27, so I'd actually bought all 5 properties before I moved out into my own property that I owned. There was a period of time that I did do some house sitting for a family member. However, at the time when I moved into a property that I owned, I actually by then owned 5 properties. Of course, you're all going to understand this, but living at home with your parents can be very cheap and you can save a lot of money, which obviously helped me buy properties a lot faster than if I had the ongoing cost that we have now of mortgages and bills and all that sort of thing. So if you're still living at home and thinking of investing, I definitely wouldn't say it's a bad thing. You can potentially invest just that bit faster. One thing I would potentially consider doing now if I was younger would be buying a house and then having a lodger in. There is actually a free allowance for renting a bedroom out. I believe it's currently £7,500 here in the UK. As a younger man, I think I would have enjoyed living with a lodger and probably enjoyed some of the parties we could have had and the nights out. But now I've matured and I'm this grown-up adult, of course, maybe I wouldn't enjoy it so much, and I do love walking around in my boxers, so it probably wouldn't be appropriate. If you have any questions about buy-to-let investing, please leave them in the comments box below. I love answering your questions, and my plan is to keep making these Q&A format videos, which I hope that you get some value from. If you enjoyed today's video, hit the subscribe button and maybe even drop me a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow and hopefully reach some more people. Apart from that, I'll chat to you really soon. Take care, guys.